First, at the beginning, I would like to say welcome and to thank you for joining us today. And we have 5 presentations in this session, but one of our presenters is not here now. But I think his presentation is going to send on video. We can start this one. And okay, I can say. First, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Professor Emel Baştürk from Socail University.
Hello everyone, I'm Turkçe Research Assistant at Üsküdar University.
Okay, Socail University Journalism Department, and I'm the moderator in this session today. And I'm going to make a presentation also at the end of this session. Yes, we can start with Mr. Zindan. I can read the title, if I can see it.
Hello everyone. I'm Zindan Turkçe Research Assistant at Üsküdar University, and my colleague Nazlı Tuna, who is an associate professor at Socail University, and I conducted this research. Due to technical limitation, we will be joining the session via video. You can find my email address on the final page of presentation, where you can reach out to me if you have any question, which I will be really happy to answer. Our study focused on examining how Afghan women migrants are portrayed in Turkish media. However, it's important to note some crucial point about how media represent this woman before we delve into research finding. The representation of Afghan women in the world has been complex and evolving issue over time. Before the Taliban took over Afghanistan in August 2021, Afghan women were often portrayed in the media as oppressed, powerless, and victim of patriarchal society. However, in recent years, there has been a growing awareness of the resilience, strength, and agency of Afghan women who have been actively working to improve their rights and representation. Since the Taliban took over in August, media coverage of Afghan women has focused on their vulnerability and the risk they face under the Taliban rule. The media has reported on the Taliban restriction of women's rights, including banning women from working in certain profession and enforcing strict dress code. There have also been reports of violence against women, including sexual assault and forced marriage. However, there are also examples of media that highlighting the bravery and resistance of Afghan women in the face of these challenges. Women rights activists, journalists, and other leaders have been speaking out and organizing protests and demonstrations to demand their rights and raise awareness on the situation in Afghanistan. Overall, the representation of Afghan women in the world press can vary widely depending on the media outlet, the specific story being covered. However, it's essential to remember that Afghan women are not a monolithic group, let's say, and their experience and perspective are diverse and complex. These studies centered around how Afghan women who migrated from Afghanistan after 2021 conflict are depicted in Turkish press. We selected 5 newspapers, namely Sınıf, Cumhuriyet, Bir Gün, Yeni Şafak, and Hürriyet, which have unique ideological background as our research sample. Together, which relate to Afghan migration, we use search function on the newspaper website, specifically searching for the terms like Afghan migrants, Afghan refugees, and Afghan asylum seekers. We then conduct content analysis on all news articles related to Afghan migration that were published since 2021. When we look at our research findings, as seen in table 1, a total of 1,133 news articles were published on Afghan migration in the sample newspaper. Hürriyet published the highest number of news articles on Afghan migration, while Socail published the list. The team of news articles on Afghan migration in the Turkish press mostly revolves around arrest and deportation, crime, political discourse, migration policy, and forced migration. The Turkish press provided little coverage of success story of Afghan or the right of Afghan women. Afghan migrants were largely reduced to numerical data, while the problem they faced were not given much attention. The sample newspaper had made total of 109 news articles on Afghan women migrants. It means that Afghan migration was represented through Afghan men in Turkish press in general. News articles on Afghan women migrants were limited in number. The theme of news articles on Afghan women migrants in the Turkish press mostly revolved around women rights, death and injury, and forced migration. Afghan women were rarely associated with theme of arrest and deportation. However, Afghan women were also rarely associated with theme of crime. The Turkish press gave more coverage to success story of Afghan women than those of Afghan men. However, it was found that the Turkish press rarely covered the problem faced by Afghan women migrants. The news article that includes Afghan women features statements from Afghan women. However, it's determined that number of news articles that did not include review of Afghan women migrants is higher, as can be seen. According to sample newspaper, Afghan women have been represented in the news with statuses such as refugee, asylum seeker, and migrant or with a certain dominant identity. It's observed that Afghan women migrants particularly have been highlighted with these statuses in the news of Hürriyet and Sözcü newspaper. Additionally, it's been seen that Afghan women migrants have been highlighted as authors in all newspapers. However, all sample newspapers have also highlighted Afghan women migrants with their profession and their role such a name is quite high. As in table 5, Afghan women have been described as somewhat white or somewhat modern in the news, in addition to second adjectives, negative adjectives such as illegal have also been used in the news. Positive adjectives describing the achievement of Afghan women migrants have rarely been used. The race of Afghan women migrants has been constantly emphasized. It's been observed that in the 67 of the exam news article, a photograph of main subject of news was used in 42 news article. However, no photograph of the main subject was used. Instead, various images were used in this news article. The main subject of news was represented through image outside of their own reality. In the analyzed news article, it was observed that interview photos were mostly used for the main character of the news. It was frequently seen that image of Afghan woman body or photo taken in the hospital were used in the news. And it was observed that migration photo of the main character in the news were also frequently used. However, images that showcase the success of Afghan women migrants were rarely used. In some of the news articles, both the photograph of the subject and other photographs were used. However, in some news articles, photographs of the subject were not used and various other photographs were used instead. In most of news articles, Afghan women were represented through images that were not reflective of their reality. The theme of all the photographs used in the news article except for the subject photographs are represented in the table. As can be seen in the table, migration photographs were frequently used. The image of Afghan women wearing burqa and soldier and police officer were also featured in the news article, emphasizing the relationship between militarism, migration, and associating Afghan women migrants with certain stereotypes. Finally, Turkish citizen and state employees were generally portrayed as hero and helper in the news article, and image of Afghan women were used in the news article related to them. So, according to analyzed data, Afghan women migrants are often represented in a negative and stereotypical way in the Turkish media. The majority of news articles use gendered and negative adjectives to describe them, and their success are rarely highlighted. In addition, their ethnicity is often emphasized. The main character in the news story is often depicted through interview photographs with image of Afghan woman body, or hospital photo also commonly used. Migration photos of Afghan women are also frequently used, while images that showcase their success are rarely used. In some news articles, both the character and other photo are included, while others do not feature the image of character at all. The majority of news stories represent Afghan women through image or type of their own reality. Theme of migration, military presence, and stereotype are often highlighted in the image used in the news article. So, dear Chairman of the session, Vice Chairman of the session, distinguished participants and distinguished audiences, that was our presentation. Thank you for your listening.
Each presenters have 15 minutes, and you will have the opportunity to ask your questions at the end of all presentations, I think, all presenters. That's why I want to go on the second presentation. Yeah, okay, I can introduce the title. This one. Çetin Gündoğan. Associate Professor Nazlı Çetin Gündoğdu from Yeditepe University. The title of her speech is Intended Use of Social Media and Emotional Acquisitions, a Comparative Analysis on Digital Natives and Digital Immigrants. Yeah, you can start when you are ready.
Thank you. The study that I'm going to present you here today is about the usage purposes of social media and related emotional acquisitions of digital natives and digital immigrants. The concepts of digital natives and digital immigrants are important concepts of today in terms of digital societies and digital divide. Digital natives can be defined as those who are born into the digital technology, and digital immigrants are those who adopted this technology later. And the digital divide is the gap between them, actually, in terms of availability, affordability, quality of service, relevance, security, digital literacy, and so on. So the aim of this study is to reveal the similarities and differences of digital natives and digital immigrants in terms of social media usage and their related emotional acquisitions, and to look at digital divide with a different perspective. These are the research questions of the study. For what reasons do digital natives and digital immigrants choose to use social media, and how do they feel when using social media? In order to answer to these questions, a survey was conducted. 9 themes about intended use of social media and 10 themes about emotional acquisitions were determined, and questions were created according to the 5-point life type. Also, demographic questions were also included, of course. I'll be showing you the findings in general and explain the important comparisons. Here you see the findings about the gender percentage and education percentage. Here are the results for age of the respondents. As you can see, the number of digital natives is almost equal to the number of digital immigrants. Here are the results for time spent per day by the respondents. Between 5 and 8 hours, which has the highest percentage. The usage rate of digital natives is 58%. For 8 hours or more usage, with a little bit low percentage, percentage, of course, but the usage is all by digital natives, and 1 hour or less is by 45 years old and older. In terms of use of social media platforms, there is no clear distinction between Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. But there is a clear distinction for some social media platforms. For example, TikTok is used only by digital natives, and LinkedIn is only used by digital immigrants. Facebook is used only by 13% of digital natives. Then we rated the questions as most appropriate for them, 1 not suitable, 5 appropriate. In terms of research purposes, there is no clear distinction between digital natives and immigrants. They all use social media for research. Percentages are equal to half in almost every scale. For comparison purposes, percentages again are equal to half, 51% digital natives and 49% for digital immigrants. Those who do not use social media for cooperation are 66% digital immigrants. New connection purposes, 75 of those who say they do not use social media to communicate with new people are digital immigrants. Those who use for new connections, 5, are 63% digital natives. All those who do not use social media to communicate with others are digital immigrants. Again, 64% of those who say they use social media to communicate with others are digital natives. Again, all those who do not use social media to keep in touch with others are digital immigrants. Again, and those who use are mostly digital natives with 62%. Here, the answers of digital immigrants and digital natives at all scales are half the same, so they all use social media for sharing content. Here, the ones who say they don't use social media for following content are all digital immigrants. The percentage is equal for digital immigrants and natives who use it for following content. The use of social media for relaxation purposes is almost equal, again, among digital natives and digital immigrants, 53 to 47%. All those who do not use, again, social media for fun purposes are digital immigrants. Those who use it for fun are mostly digital natives with a percentage of 63%. Then we ask them to rate how often they experience the following emotions. 1 never, 5 continuously while using social media, of course. As you can see, most users are in the middle. Here the percentage is 75.7% for digital immigrants. All those who feel continuously happy are digital natives. All those who never feel the feeling of happiness are digital immigrants. About unhappiness, the results are important actually. All those who continuously felt unhappiness were also digital natives. Those who never felt unhappy are 74% digital immigrants. Similarly, the majority is in the middle when it comes to enjoyment and pleasure. Those who continuously feel pleasure are 60% digital natives. The rate of those who constantly feel in a bad mood is half the same, actually. 40% of those who say they never felt dejected are digital natives, and 60% are digital immigrants. The majority is in the middle when it comes to efficiency. The proportion of those who have never felt a sense of competence is equal in digital natives and digital immigrants. Similarly, 52% of those who say they always feel the feeling of inadequacy is only 30. The sense of competence are digital natives. Those who say they always feel the feeling of inadequacy are digital natives. The percentage of digital natives who say they never feel the feeling of inadequacy is only 31%. Again, we see that the majority is in the middle. Those who constantly feel anger are all digital natives. Only 27% of those who say they don't feel at all are digital natives. There is also equality in terms of satisfaction. Percentages are equal between digital natives and digital immigrants among those who constantly feel and don't feel at all are again digital natives for 27%. Among those who say they don't feel any anxiety, the digital native rate is only 22%. Among those who say they feel it constantly, their rate is 72%. Those who say they never feel joy are all digital immigrants. Among those who say they feel joy, the percentage of digital immigrants is 42 and digital native is 57. As a conclusion, we can say that digital natives use social media for more reasons than the digital immigrants, especially for communication, getting in touch, and entertainment purposes. But it's also important to see that digital immigrants are less affected by their use of social media, and digital natives are more emotionally affected. So it is necessary to look at digital divide, digital gap in terms of these uses and emotional acquisitions. As the study showed, if one group is emotionally affected by social media usage and another group is not, a gap arises here. So the study suggests that in order to have digital equalities, all should be equal in their spend on technology. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, we can continue the other presentation. Burak Efe Aslantaş from Istanbul Technical University.
Hi, I use my second name. I'm a bit excited because this is my first academic presentation. So,
Calm down.
I'm happy to see. It says Istanbul Technical University. That's where I'm studying currently. But I graduated from Istanbul University Faculty of Communications. My thesis advisor is also here, Professor Hasan Akbulut. It's very good. It's very exciting to see you too.
Kumanda olmadığı için nasıl ilerleteceğiz diyor.
Excuse me.
Kumanda.
Sorry. So my subject is the as it says, effect of streaming over musicians and music.
Hayır, aşağı
Sol aşağı.
Şurada şarap verecek var.
Yok, o da
Yok, az önce şuradan açtık.
ekran
Pardon, şöyle. Şuradan da boyum yetmiyor ama şuradan bir de yapacağız.
Nasıl hocam?
sorry for the technical difficulties. Our subject of research was the effect of streaming over musicians and also the music industry. And our aim of this research was the artistic perspective on streaming, advantages and disadvantages versus the physical formats like CDs, cassettes, or vinyl records, which was very popular in the recent years, and the financial status of the musicians, the artists. And yeah, our sample group, our sampling method consists of in-depth interviews, observations, and field notes. We collected data with in-depth interviews with 12 musicians from Turkey, and their opinions were what their opinions were about on streaming platforms. Snowball sampling method, we used what we were used to for this research. We used an ethnographic approach in the critical political economy to analyze our data, collected data. We aim to see the musicians as a community more than individual freelancers. And in the study, our main goal was trying to give the experiences from the musicians and their conditions from their own point of view, and we try to prevent the dehumanization of the issue. So, there are simply two different ways to finance a musician's life. You can either play live gigs, you can go to you can play on concerts, or you can release music. You can record your music or do some covers and release your own music. While playing live has its own dynamics, pros and cons on its own universe, what we are going to focus is the internet-related side of the business, the publishing. So, what is streaming? Streaming is the type of consuming music through online platforms. These online platforms consist mass numbers of music, mass numbers of data inside themselves, and it is personalized by algorithms to serve the community. So what are our methods of production? That is my desk, by the way, and that's my home studio. It's not very visible, but the production of music is a gradual process. First, you need the song. It can either be an original composition of yours, or an arrangement of a previous composition, or in today's terms, a cover. So then you need a studio. It can either be a dedicated recording studio. You can rent it for an hour or a day, or it can be a home studio, which is today's most popular option. But in the home studio, where you have to buy everything. You have to buy your equipment. You have to buy your software to produce music, and at the end releasing it. And after the recording, you have to edit the music, mix the music, and master the music. These are three different workflows in the creation of music. And voila! You have your freshly baked music. It's hot and ready to be consumed. But how? Well, the preview. Well, according to Karl Marx, the mode of production is divided between two main economic classes, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The ones who owns the means of production and the ones who owns only their own labor. But between these two, Marx also cited another economical class who both owns their own labor and their means of production, the petit bourgeois, which we can put the musicians in the petit bourgeois on this situation. And throughout the years, musicians' case for being in the petit bourgeois became a bit tricky on this aspect, because in the Western world during the Middle Ages, up until the Renaissance, they were funded by the church. Then they were funded by the palace, the emperor, their feudal lord. In the Romantic period, they were highly respected freelancers, highly respected and paid freelancers. They were on the top of the world income rates. In the post-World War I period, they became radio stars, then TV stars, then pop stars, and today they are content creators. Well, the gig economy, I'd like to speak about the gig economy a little bit. It's a business model where an individual works temporarily on a job for a brief time, and then when the liability is fulfilled, the relation of business is over with the contractor. In our case, most of those business relations are fulfilled without any assurance, thus resulting musicians' socio-economical situation into a newer class, the precariat. What is the cost of becoming a musician? Does anybody know? No. An average musician begins in an early age, which may span between the age of 4 to 16, and has to spend at least 2 hours per day for about a decade just to be good enough to become a professional player on their instrument. And they have to keep working for many decades, in most cases their whole lifetime. When we are calculating the cost of production, we have to calculate all of these factors. In order to have the smallest product, we have to consider the expenses like the price of the instrument, price of the equipment, the studio, the mixing and mastering. These are two different expenses. And the personnel who worked on the recording and the session musicians who played in your recording, and those unseen, these are the unseen expenses musicians have to suffer. And how about the, we can only estimate the cost, but we for sure know the worth. These are the worth of a musician gets per one stream. It's about, approximately, it's about ½ cent. Well, on average, on physical formats, no, the previous one. On average, on physical formats, musicians got 10% of the retail price. And the average price for a brand new album was about $15 on any format. So $1.5 per sale. And only estimated cost of the recording to publishing is about $50,000 per one album. And the album, when you do the math, the album compensates itself on roughly 30 to 35,000 physical sales or about 10 to 12 million streams. Freemium. The freemium is a method that everyone's familiar with. Everybody's using it. The platform either gets paid by the user and gives ad-free premium membership, or lets users use the platform for free and get paid by the advertisers. It is the most popular method for streaming platforms, and though it's proven very profitable for companies, the distribution of revenue differs from company to company. We have some alternative methods for freemium, inside of freemium, which is the user-centric payment and the market share payment. Market share payment is used by the larger portion of the streaming companies like Spotify, Apple Music, and the user-centric payment is a kind of alternative way of paying. The market share payment, well, in the market share payment, the total revenue is divided by the artist's total stream count, the market share. We gather all the money, you gather all the streams, and every stream is like a share, and the one who has the most shares gets the most amount of money, which causes mid to low tier artists economic meltdown, because the smaller portion gets the most out of the revenues. And from another perspective, the UCPS, which has mainly been used by Deezer and SoundCloud, divides the revenue much more fairly by distributing the revenue by the capital earned directly from the artist's listener. So you only get the money from the people that listen to you. Though the UCPS is still ineffective to the lowest tier of streaming, as they get very low amounts of streaming rates. These are what I'm going to read are the quotations from our focus group that we had in our in-depth interviews. I'm working so much more than a normal shift in different fields in order to have a decent income. First of all, we need the full credits of the composers, performers, technicians, artwork designers, and just like any record, cassette, or sleeve. Just a name, artist, and a single artwork in today's streaming platforms. This is only a manufactured supermarket product, nothing else. Streaming has expanded the domain of the musicians, true, but the success depends on how much you are willing to pay on advertising. The publishing was only possible through curators and administrators and some certain decision mechanism. This is kind of opposing. Well, let me say, from our perspective, it's generally their opinions were generally in the middle of two sides. So while mostly they were for streaming, very little was against due to its power of international publishing potential. These ones that I'm going to read next are the ones who are quite for streaming. Publishing was only possible through curators, administrators, and some certain decision mechanisms. The artists could not put their own preferred recording on the music stores, but today it is possible to release and monetize any sound from any sound recording in the form of music without getting any consent from anyone, or the opinion, or anything about the lyrics or the feelings of the piece. There are tremendous amount of publishing capacity. To be honest, I haven't fully adapted yet. Theoretically, I can make release every week or a day. Back in the day, the creative economy used to publish the artworks of collective intelligence, but now it focuses on the artworks of individual intelligence. That's a direct link from home to market. Let me get to findings. In our general findings, 3 minutes. We're going to do that. The streaming platforms offers a lower payout than traditional album sales. Streaming companies worth billions, while artist revenues are measured by pennies. Streaming platforms allows our artists a greater reach among target buyers internationally, but if only artists can advertise themselves. This is time-consuming. This is a time-consuming process and costs a lot for independent artists. Streaming platforms increases artists' ticket sales. So they're selling tickets, reaching new audiences through the streaming platforms, and they increase artists' album sales. Yes, it increases their physical sales too. Copyright control issues in Turkish music was a major problem for musicians in Turkey. Spotify has lowered the rates of those who are once pirated music. In general, the streaming lowered the rates of pirated music. And streaming platforms have an oppression on musicians for continuous manufacturing. I'm purposely not using the producing word producing, it's manufacturing. Streaming platforms have also influenced the creativity of artists while introducing new music with discovery feature. Some interviewees reported that this increases their creativity. They face constant production pressure for their own profit. As the founder of Spotify, Daniel Ek, suggested, you can't record music once in every 3 to 4 years and think that's going to be enough. During the pandemic, online streaming was their only choice for getting an income. They have lack of separation of work hours and leisure time. And streaming platforms alone have no sustainability for the artists. The gig economy caused another change in the musician's economic class to precarism. And as a result, while the improving technology gives more freedom and opportunity to the musicians and causes a significant decrease in piracy, yet resulting in another change in the musician's economical position from being a petit bourgeois to a precariat. The pandemic forced musicians to create from their own studio, which caused studio-related business models into a turmoil. And the algorithm forces musicians to mass manufacture their own music instead of encouraging their creative production process, and the mass manufacturing does not bring any sustainable income. The major streaming company executives are acting as feudal lords and ordering their serfs to produce more to get more, while their companies are worth billions of dollars. Non-sustainable income forces the time and labor of musicians into mass-manufactured music, while increasing the quantity, it decreases the quality and diversity of this so-called art form. The future of music is getting precarious. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Efe. It was really successful presentation.
And for that, I have to thank my colleague. Yeah, she helped a lot, a lot.
The fourth presenter is Dr. Sinan Akçı from Bahçeşehir University, and he's going to talk about cyberbullying and online grooming. I'm wondering about it.
So, I'm sorry not to just mention such a nice topic right now and going into deep about cyberbullying and online grooming, but it will just, take some short time, so I will not, do it as a long way. But while I was just using some social media platforms, I was recognizing some of the hashtags that are just used by some of the influencers and some, content producers actually to just spread and share their own ideas through their channels. I recognize some of the accounts in Turkey actually, they are just producing some of the contents to just warn the parents, the kids, or some youngsters who could just experience cyberbullying to just, let them know that how to prevent cyberbullying or how to protect themselves from cyberbullying. However, while just producing these contents, I also recognize that they have been using some of the hashtags to just, spread it more and more. That's why I just put this title as more than posted hashtags for social listening. As you may guess and know, social listening is used for, some marketing issues to make the brands understand what their customers and audience are just, mentioning their names and their services on the internet, most probably. But I took this term to be able to understand that how we are recognizing cyberbullying in some actions that we are just trying to release some of the knowledge. So that's why I was just going in deep about these posts one by one to be able to understand how they are just speaking about cyberbullying to just create an impact on their audiences or some possible, followers of them actually on social media platforms. For that reason, I took the taxonomy of, Wolgin and Copley, which was just created in 1993. And it starts with appreciative, then comprehensive, and then critical and discriminative. We will all be just looking at all these patterns one by one to be able to understand how these posted hashtags are just categorized actually by the users or by the producers. When we just think about the first stage of Wolgin and Copley, we can definitely understand that those hashtags are just used to just, make the people and the other individuals comprehend some of the issues in general. However, when we look at the second, third, and fourth stage, those will be more important for us to be able to understand and to just prevent cyberbullying or to just keep ourselves away from it. Which is the most important part. I mean, it should be the first one, most probably, in the online world right now, which is related to comprehension. So we need to just comprehend the issue at a first glance, and afterwards we can just criticize the situation, and maybe we can, use some of the patterns to just deal with this detail. For such issues to be able to understand some sociological backgrounds of the issues related to social media platforms, we can just, use some of the actions actually that are just, run and performed by the individuals, like our emotions to just show, or some real-time data could be just collected as the brands are just doing the volume of the big data they are just using to just use the correct questions to be able to get their answers. For what? For just having an actionable insight, to just, do something for it, for their own conversations, to spread their own messages, and for share of voice, to just support the different voices actually in that field, to just know them. Why I have been using social listening instead of using social monitoring? Because monitoring just depends on something reactive that I need to just react against some of the issues that are just recognized on social media platforms. But I use social listening because this is so proactive that we need to see the problems or some question marks in advance to be able to just, keep ourselves in the safe zone and to just use it. For that reason, I just defined social listening on my topic actually as a new form of listening, because we need to find another way actually to gather some of the information or some interpersonal or personal knowledge or experiences of the individuals to just strengthen our relationships with the technologies. So this is just as a reminder for the ones who are not able to, who should not know the definitions of cyberbullying and online grooming, because sometimes we are always mixed with hate speech and cyberbullying, and we are always mixed with digital threats and online grooming, but they are all totally different issues actually when we just go in deep about the details. When we look at the definition of cyberbullying, it should be just a type of bullying which is just carried out by using digital technologies intentionally and repeatedly. So this was the keywords that we have been using in order to cause some harm to the other people. So which means that the other people should, could not deal with the issue really well to just keep himself or herself away from the situation. For online grooming, it is something more than the digital threat, because at the very beginning of online grooming process, the person that is in touch with us should just be friend with the other person, and afterwards, when he or she gains the courages of the other people or support of the other people, then they can just have some emotional connection with the others, and then they can just react and use some digital threat patterns to do that. So for that reason, I was just trying to understand that how different Instagram influencers, or not influencer, because influencer is just, not that much broad, but Instagram content producers maybe could be the best word to use. How they are just showing how cyberbullying and online grooming are communicated through their own posts, with their captions by using different hashtags. And I just would like to analyze the user sentiments by just focusing on something positive, negative, and neutral toward them. Because at the end of the day, when we just think about the situation, all the content producers about cyberbullying and online grooming are just trying to do their best to deal with the situation. But the hashtags to just spread their own messages they have used actually in their own captions could be just giving different meanings in our daily lives. Of course, positive, I have got a good footnote about it. This does not mean that this could be a positive issue, but the positive in this sense about sentiment analysis is about supporting. I mean, not the behaviors, but the people who have experienced it. So that's why please keep that word in that meaning, not to have another negative part of it. The research question that I was just asking myself, because we have recognized that there are lots of accounts starting with digital and technologic, and a person name or a legal entity name just comes afterwards. How these users actually want to be heard with their own ideas about cyberbullying and online grooming on different social media platforms. I have chosen Instagram because there are more opportunities to just release their own words and raise their own voices. So I just checked the Instagram accounts starting with digital and technologic. Let me just give you some examples, because I'm not going to give the details about the accounts that I analyzed, like digital moms, digital dads, technology teachers, or some other possibilities like this. They could be the natural people as users, as we could be also one of them, or legal entities like universities, research centers, or NGOs, and some initiatives. I mean, a few friends of BA students just come together and start dealing with the issue. And I just, got their posts, especially focused on their captions, how they just shared cyberbullying and online grooming ideas, experiences, or some, tackling possibilities in 2022. I checked the whole year, by the way. For that reason, I have used three different research tools on Python. So the first Python script that I have used was just making me have an opportunity to get who has got such accounts actually in Turkey to produce some content about cyberbullying and online grooming. So that's why I use these codes to just scrape the data on Instagram to just understand that how many accounts we have got when we just write these keywords actually to just scrutinize something on Instagram in Turkey's landscape. And the second Python script that I have used was just scraping the hashtags they have used actually in their post between the first day of 2022 and the last day of 2022. That's why I just put some date limitations around it to just scrape actually all the data and retrieve the hashtags they have used. And afterwards, in this code, I have also just taken some of the information about which posts are related to cyberbullying and online grooming, because through the scraped hashtags, I also got the links or URLs of the posts to be able to understand which one is directly related or which one is just used in vain, because sometimes if you would like to attract the other individuals with some keywords by using some hashtags on Instagram, you can use something different than your content. So it could be just something like, it could be seen by more individuals in detail. So that's why I need to get the URLs as well to just do double check actually whether it really consists of such information related to cyberbullying or online grooming. And the third Python script that I have used for sentiment analysis, of course, for the ones who are really interested in this kind of research methods, I need to just explain the situation, because there should be a kind of wording library in the background to work for you, whether it refers to something positive, negative, or neutral. So these kind of libraries are just created by cyberbullying and online grooming researchers all around the world. It is also just, contributed by me, so that's why I could have a chance to use the whole library that we just created to be able to use by the other researchers all around the world as well. This was just making me, have another opportunity to use all the hashtags one by one to see that whether they refer to something positive, neutral, or negative in the meaning of whatever they are just using in the context, because we need to know the context at first to be able to understand what they are doing. I mean, when you look at the first result that I can just show you what kind of hashtags they have used, this was also created by the Python code that I just used in the second round, as I have just shown you. As you just see, most of them are Turkish, but I can just try to do my best to just let you know in general. I mean, technology, DM was just noted down, but it was just used as something sliding into someone's DM. I mean, to just emphasize some online grooming issues. So, for example, sexuality for adolescents, Instagram, public playtime, sexuality for kids, or something like WhatsApp, cyberbullying, social media and kids, Hoogie Woogie, which is one of the, toy, which was banned in Turkey actually. So, or data protection and safety and some other things that they have just used while they are releasing. When you look at this word cloud, you can definitely understand that they have used the words in a correct way to just release their own messages. However, when you look at the visuals of them and the other details which comes together with these specific words to just emphasize something, it could just give us different meanings to make you see that how it could be. I mean, I just scraped 131 different profiles, which was just starting with digital and technology in Turkey. However, just only 6 of them was used by, for this reason, for producing such contents. The exclusion criteria was based on, some of the contents, like digital PR or some accounts was just only used for marketing issues, so that's why they were not producing some contents related to cyberbullying or online grooming. And some accounts were also excluded because they did not share something in 2022. It was just, frozen, or for some reason they stopped using it. When I analyzed the content on cyberbullying and online grooming, I have found approximately 213 different contents in these 6 different profiles. However, 213 different posts in 2022, but just 31 of them was related to cyberbullying and online grooming. I mean, some of them were using online grooming and cyberbullying hashtags, but it was not directly related to some of the actions or samples. So that's why maybe they were just trying to promote their own pages. The used hashtags was around, as I have shown you the word cloud, 144 in common. I mean, it was more than 144, but the ones in common. I just excluded, in the hashtags, about the branded usernames. Some of the users are using their own usernames as hashtags to brandize it, to just, promote it and to be just shown more individuals. When I just use the code on Python about sentiment analysis with the library that we have created through the words that I have got within hashtags, I have got the numbers that I was just expecting at that moment. The negative meanings of them in the context was around just 64.1% among these 144 words, and the neutral ones were around 14.7%. However, there was something related to positive ones to just support the individuals, not to support the actions or experiences. It was around 21.2% when we just think about the sentiment analysis. Why I need to just show this one more time to you, when you look at them in general, you can definitely understand that those words could be just used for supporting those individuals, or for just generating some of the contents that are just, created for something good. For some good reasons, or for the purposes of training the individuals, raising awareness, or some other good purposes. However, when we look at the negative ones in detail, most probably it was just social media etiquettes, digital lives, digital natives, or some others. We definitely see that the users or the content producers on cyberbullying and online grooming in Turkey have been using these words not for some good purposes, but they are trying to raise, unfortunately, the moral panic to just impact the individuals one by one, to get some more likes, more followers, or just for something clickbait. I don't have any idea their reason. Maybe we need to do another research to ask them why they are just producing with different meanings. This is just the key finding that I have got, but one more thing I have found, because the users who generate some content about cyberbullying and online grooming, unfortunately, when we just scrape their data of their profiles, we can definitely recognize that their expertise is not in that field. I mean, most probably if they just use the hashtag like child development, they were not trained about child development. Most probably they just use some hashtags about data safety or security, and they were not trained about it. They were just sharing some of the results of the reports to just become one of the important facilitator or one of the tools for just swaying the public opinion and emotions. So for that reason, when we think about this limited study that I just tried to do my best to just complete, it just reveals that the wordings or the hashtags, even the wordings in the hashtags, could be just impacting some issues in the negative way or negative experiences more than we think, even if we have been just using the words for some good purposes in our minds. So maybe there could be some other further research that we can have, like some discourse analysis, of course, in these words, within the captions, within the visuals they have just created. But I just brought up some other questions in my mind while I was just doing this research, actually, in this sense. How do these usages impact the other users? Because we don't have any idea about whether the other users actually are just sharing the same post with the same words, with the same intentions in their social media platforms, or just stopping there and just consuming the content. And why do these content generators or producers make use of appreciating and comprehending, especially on such a double bind? I mean, we have a good expression in Turkish about it, but because I'm just presenting this in English, I'm not going to use it. But double bind is just a kind of sword, just cut you as two-sided way. And what are the ethical bases which should be grasped by the users who would like to share their thoughts and expertise, and some other questions that I can just add, or maybe you can just add as well. Without just taking too much time, I don't have any idea how many minutes I have got, but thank you very much for just listening to me.
Thank you very much, Sinan. This is my turn. And I want to speak here, which is easier for me. And after this fully in English, it gets really hard to speak for me. Could you click on one more, please? No, this.
Şuradaki oklardan ilerletmek.
It is easier. Takılıyor bu. Professor Emel Baştürk from Socail University, and my presentation title is Changing Reader Expectations in the Digital Age, Creating Value for the Reader. As we know, traditional journalism has been in a crisis for a while. The spread of digital technologies, the use of social media for the news follow-up, and the changing news consumption habits of young readers, especially young readers, and the COVID-19 pandemic has been listed as the causes of this crisis. We can say that digital platforms or new media technologies are both one of the reasons of this crisis, I think, but also the main platform for the new opportunities for journalism at the same time. New consumption habits have been changing, and the parallel of this, news production practices have been changing in the digital age. And yeah, we can continue. In this study, discussed the changing readers' expectations and how their news consumption habits have changed, and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. But this is not only the focus during COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to share the findings of the news consumption habits survey conducted with 200 participants in London and Cardiff in the United Kingdom. It was a research project with financial support the Turkish Scientific Council and hosted by Cardiff University in Wales, Jomek. And my supervisor was Professor Stuart Allen. And I conducted this research in the 2021 and 2022 academic year. Yeah. Sorry, I want to say the name of my project. Yes, local media and digital transformation in the context of the sustainable journalism, a roadmap from the example of the Britain. Actually, this survey is a part of a large-scale study. Just I want to share the small part. Yes, we can. Yeah, I conducted a survey, local news consumption habits. It was actually focused on local news consumption, but my questionnaire includes, of course, the national or international news consumption habits also. I want to learn most preferred and reliable media outlets for my participants. How did news consumption change during the COVID-19 pandemic? And also the participants include some Turkish readers also, it is another issue. Yeah. Key findings of the survey. Approximately 60% of the participants uptake the news 2 or 3 times a day more frequently. And the UK news and breaking news categories are the first 2 among the most preferred news categories, with the rate over 50%. Those are the beginning, yeah, starting, yeah. The print newspaper is the least preferred legacy media platform for the news consumption, we can say it. Especially during COVID-19 pandemic, you know, the people try to avoid to touch the paper, you know. And yeah, this is one of the reasons. And of course, because of the lockdown in the UK and the spreading out the newspaper, printed newspaper got really hard. And while online news sites were the most preferred news platforms, and TV news and print newspaper social media accounts followed them. Yeah, we can say, of course, no, don't go on. You know, we can say that TV news watching times really get higher COVID-19 pandemics, and newspaper social media accounts also. It is seen that the preference rate for printed newspapers for local news consumption is relatively low. The rates of those who always prefer the online news platforms, websites, social media accounts, applications, option is 38. The rate of those who prefer often is 42. The sum of these two is about 80. Yeah, I'm not good at on the numbers. Yeah. key findings. Yeah, the most preferred social media platform for updating the news is Twitter, and Facebook is the second. And unlikely Turkey, in the UK, Facebook is really common for the news sharing. Yeah, you know, in Turkey we mostly prefer Twitter. Instagram is the third. Yeah, we can go on. COVID-19 pandemic. The survey also includes some questions about how changed the news following habits during the pandemic. They were given some statements to participants and they were asked to mark their level of agreement. 5-point Likert we asked. I mean, question groups, and we asked that how much you agree or disagree. You know. The most significant findings of this question group is local news following rates highly increased during the pandemic. I mean, people want to follow local news more than ever, yeah, before, because they're wondering about their city, their town, yeah, whether they can go out, whether they can go to shopping. Maybe they care about China, but they care about their city more. And the percentage of the participants who agree with the statement, I have started following the local news about my city, town more, is 67%. Yeah. It is seen that there is a significant increase in not only people's local news consumption, but also in national and international. The rate of those who agree with the statement, I have followed more news than I use, is 46%, because you know the people were wondering about what's going on, and they started to follow more news. Can we go? I use more online news application than I used to. Agree 38.5%. Strongly agree. You can see the numbers. I discovered new news sources. People try to discover new news sources because I think they didn't trust the legacy media or mainstream media, because they give some misinformation sometimes. For example, they said about the booster some controversial news about using mask. They said, okay, we should use mask, and then they said, oh, we don't need to use mask. It's useless, you know. It is seen that people look for different channels due to their need for news. During the COVID-19 pandemic, news consumption on social media channels increased, and dramatically increased. The percentage of the respondents who agree with this phrase is 43, and strongly agree with 23. These rates align with other researches conducted in the UK and other countries, because my sample is limited, I know, just only 200 participants, but it is aligned with the other sources in the UK. Additionally, it is seen that in the interviews with the media professionals, I conducted some interviews also, subscriptions to local media outlets significantly increased during the pandemic. Although the pandemic created a significant crisis for printed newspapers, people's need for news increased more than ever in this period, and readers sought reliable news sources. I mean, I observed that during my research. Local media platforms and also the online news channels increased their subscription rates. Yeah, research also shows that the UK media could not maintain the attention it caught during the pandemic. I mean, professionals told me that in my interview. Media organizations which reach significant digital subscribers and now trying to maintain these numbers. Newsroom observation. At the same time, I conducted 4 newsroom observations in my project. I'm not going to talk about this result, but I'm going to talk about my findings through my observations. The first one is the Wales Argus. It was a local news media company, and the second one was BBC Wales. Carefully Observer was a hyper-local company, and Turkish Olay newspaper, it was a Turkish newspaper in London. Yeah, we can go on. Come on, click please. The most preferred media outlets, I have 3 open-ended questions in the survey, and it was really, those questions was really valuable for me, and I recommend you ask open-ended questions in the survey. The most preferred national and local media outlet, I asked. The reasons of they prefer this or this. As expected, the TV channels such as BBC, Sky News and IT News are among the most repeated media channels in the survey. And for the local news, participants indicated the BBC England, BBC Wales and some other local newspaper websites. On the other hand, although they do not do journalism in the traditional sense, social media applications such as Reddit, Nextdoor and Eventbrite are among the channels that the participants prefer to follow local news. And yeah, why do they prefer these media platforms? Mostly they say trust, reliable, I can trust them, trustworthy, credibility. Yeah, we can see that readers seeking for credibility. And can we go? Yeah. And the reasons what they find credibility or trustworthy is changing. I think this is the important point. Because some find traditional media, mainstream media outlets reliable, because they said they are traditional, they are huge companies, or because of this they find reliable, while others find them unreliable. In particular, it is seen that young participants prefer social media platforms because they think they are more reliable. One more, please. One more. Yeah. Some participants stated that they found social media platforms reliable and free from censorship, unlike mainstream media outlets. Telegram is uncensored, and I read that I want to read without manipulation or censoring. One of the participants answered. Yes, can we go? And one more, please. And another reason they prefer the media platform, follow, easy access, quick, easy of follow and access, another reason. One participant expressed this in the following words: it is easier than sitting in front of the TV or radio to listen to what is new. Online I can find it quickly and direct. Yeah, because of this they prefer the online media news platforms. Yeah, I'm coming to conclusion, and I want to say that these interpretations or evaluations not limited the findings of my survey. It seems that the credibility of traditional media has decreased. People's interest in local or regional news has increased. Prefers to reach personalized information via social media platforms. The internet is conventional news approaching and formats are declining. The young participants say they find the media discourse is hard to understand or follow. And I agree with them. Really, reading news in English is difficult for me. It's too long sentences, and writing like this. uncommon words. They're choosing uncommon words, and most of the participants say the same way. It is emphasized that creating value for the reader is necessary to capture a loyal readership and increase reader income. Yeah, I mean, well, what does it mean, creating value? How should we create value journalism for the readers? Primarily, it is essential to analyze the reader's expectations correctly. I believe that. And I believe that we need that kind of research in Turkey also. And as far as I know, there are so limited research in Turkey about this. This research was conducted in, yes, okay, we can go. Can we go? In light of my observation throughout this research, I can say that the following points stand out as the way to create value for the reader in the UK. Avoid press release reporting. It means presenting the same story in the same pattern. And especially the young reader don't want it. Changing the London-based journalism understanding. And we call it Istanbul-based journalism, it is the same actually. And prioritizing the number of permanent visitors instead of the instant digital traffic. Avoiding practices that undermine the reader's trust, such as clickbait. Press release journalism, I want to explain this very short. When you do press release journalism, you lose your difference, and the readers don't want this pattern. Journalists must make it understandable and pick the parts that make sense for their readers. Because the same story, they don't want the same story. And also I don't want the same story neither. Can we go? Press release journalism also, it is this, I mentioned it before, it is easier than stinging from, clear and easier to understand. Because reader wants to clear and easier to understand. What does it mean for me? Okay, I want to see it, just not the who said this, or he said this, she said this. I don't want to read it anymore. Easy to read, yeah. Can you go? Centralizing understanding is one of the most criticized traditional journalism practices. I want to talk about London-based news. Especially in a vast country like the UK, London-based journalism no longer finds a response, get back to among the readers. This concept does not only refer to a geographical region, it expresses journalism approach. Approach, okay. Some local media organizations are criticized for doing London-based reporting. It is interesting. It is not a regional term. Even some local media companies criticize this. The journalists need to see the events from the view of their audiences, their readers. Yeah, conclusion. Some challenges of the media seem to be global or common. Economic problems are the front of these common challenges because some of them the same in UK and in Turkey. The increased falling reader audience income needs to establish a relationship of trust with its reader. It is needed to rethink many practices from news value criteria to news writing rules in order to regain the audience that shifts to social media platforms. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Okay, we can take your questions now. Yeah, if you have questions, you can ask because we have time. 15 minutes we have.
Ask a question. Thank you for the 5 papers. They're all really brilliant. Thank you. My question is for you, Burak, again. And in the literature on economics, cultural economics, there have been many surveys of musicians and what their attitudes are towards new platforms and the revenues that they can get through copyright. And usually those surveys end up concluding that musicians are motivated intrinsically. They're going to do what they do irrespective of their rewards. They don't care about them. And usually...
Copyright issue is a massive problem in Turkey.
Yes.
But that was...
Any regulation.
Okay, but shall I finish the
That's
question?
the problem.
No, it's yeah, okay. So I wondered whether in your interviews, was there anything that contradicted that point of view, that musicians will make music anyway, and really they don't care about whether they're going to get revenues or not, because that's such an important line of argumentation in the cultural economics literature, and it's an anti-copyright position. Okay.
Well, of course, many musicians may think otherwise, but in our what was the word? In our focus group, the musicians were trying to make a living out of music. It wasn't just idealistic. Of course, there's an idealism inside it. That's undeniable, but as you may understand, if you spend that amount of time into something, and that amount of work and labor into something, you need to find a way to make an income out of it. It's not just venture capitalistic trading the music. It may not be. It's not an outcome from our research, but I can say that they're not doing it for money, but they need money.
Yeah.
We all need money. We all spend time and work and effort, and we need something financial in expense.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
My question is a little bit related to what you asked, but also the theoretical framework that you proposed, the feudalism metaphor, which I'm kind of against, but that's fine. We need to disagree and have different opinions. From the perspective of musicians, it makes perfect sense to use such a metaphor to emphasize this type of very specific exploitation, because it's not a work contract exploitation, it's very self-exploitative in a way. But my point is similar to what Julian said, and I think that kind of makes the fit with the theoretical argument a bit uneasy, because the focus group is as you explained, focused mostly on musicians that want to make a living out of it. And I was wondering, what are the other sources of revenue in general, or income for musicians? Because as the surveys show, if you want to do it out of love for music, you need to find some other source of income. In feudalism, you were forced to work on the land because you would die, right? Literally, because there was no other way to get food, to get housing. So there is a slight uneasiness with the concept.
I know.
I mean, it's useful to emphasize that they are exploited, but you know.
Yeah, I know it's exaggerated, but personally, I love exaggerations. I mean, the title is Starvation.
I know.
Yeah, it's a bit. As my colleague says, during the pandemic, there were a very dramatic situation in Turkey. I mean, starvation became real. Some musicians took their own lives. They were mostly live musicians, which I didn't mention because that's a whole other study. That's why I tried to avoid. But the situation of musicians became horrendously worse during the pandemic. I mean, I believe 30 musicians have
Indies.
yeah,
Indies in Turkey especially.
have took of their own lives. And sorry for the exaggeration, that's only for attention grabbing, nothing else.
No, but it's, see, a similar theoretical concept would have the same benefit without the exaggeration. Because if you look at the platforms as fetishes of economy and technology that obscure the social relations, you can still talk about the position of musicians. Because these relations are obscured by the platform. It looks very rational and calculated, but you don't see the work. So I think what you do is really, really important.
Thank you.
My question is for Sinan.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to know if you could give us some examples of hashtags that were chosen by Python as neutral. Because I worked on sentiment analysis too, and I'm particularly interested in that.
Okay, I need to just, check the presentation if you just give me some time, because I don't remember them by heart. But I can definitely tell you that which one was just, chosen as neutral. To just tell you. For example, there is just one thing, online games, which was just chosen as neutral. Share, which was just chosen as neutral.
Shame.
Share, no, not shame, but share. Or adolescence is just a word to just define the group they are just, trying to raise their words. Mom and kids was just definitely neutral, which was not giving a message in the caption, but it was just, telling the, the persons who are involved in the caption, or just their situations in general.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
Because
welcome.
the ethical aspects are the ones that are more related to machine learning and the classification of words, which is an issue that I encountered many times.
Yeah, but because they are in Turkish, I did not translate during my presentation.
I speak Turkish.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Any other question?
By the way, I also have a question for you.
Yeah.
After our
Of
guests.
course.
No question. Okay, you can.
Okay. Do we have any data about the decentralized media about online grooming and cyber?
Because we did not use decentralized applications in Turkey too much nowadays. Maybe we started with mass data just after Twitter's crisis all around the world, as in all countries. That's why we did not have any numbers about decentralized applications.
And it's,
as much as I know and as much as I follow on the latest publications in Turkey about this issue and in the world, even there is no numbers about decentralized applications in the world, because most probably because we started discussing decentralized revenues nowadays with some popular issues like blockchain technologies, like metaverse, or some applications that we can use in our daily lives. We still did not start discussing about that part, but I'm always asking my question in my
it's
mind.
hard to track down.
If someone cyberbullying my online well-being in a metaverse world, what could happen? So this was always a question in my mind, but there's no study about it all around the world right now.
I believe it's hard to track numbers.
Of course,
yeah.
But the experiences could be just taken into consideration in that sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question?
A short one for Burak, if nobody wants to. I'm just wondering if it's the effect of platforms, or is it the effect of the pandemic?
Well,
it's bigger on musicians, because I'm still thinking about various sources of income, and because it's difficult to sell albums in a traditional sense, a lot of musicians are forced to play live shows. So because of the pandemic, because of that, they weren't unable to get that source of income. Is that maybe a bigger factor than the impact of the platforms?
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, one of our interviewees have mentioned about it. What did he say that I don't quite remember? I don't know. What was his words? actually goes beyond the pandemic. It just it was just the icing on the cake that made it that made musicians in Turkey to snap. And your question was continuing. I didn't fully answer. I think. Can you repeat it again?
So I'm just wondering if the fact that there were no live shows was a bigger factor contributing to the musicians and the effect of the platforms. Because they couldn't play live shows, right? And get some income from that.
Well, I don't have any. That's a great question, but let me get back to you with a further research. It requires further research.
I have a quick question for Emma, if that's okay. It's interesting that you combined a reader survey with some observation in the newsroom. I just wanted to ask whether there were any of the findings that came out or the results that surprised you. So you found that interest in local news increased during the pandemic and then has fallen away. But has anything surprised you about your findings?
About the survey or?
Just at all? Was there anything that you thought was?
I think it's surprising for me. I can guess the subscription increase. It was a surprise for me. But some of the activists working about journalism, for example, People's Newsroom or investigative journalism platforms or some unions, they criticize the mainstream media UK too much, and I thought that we just criticize the media in Turkey. And for example, London-based journalism, and I said, yeah, it's true. And the media discourse, news writing rules, they also criticize this, and they say that we should get it shortly and more impressive, fast and quick, easy to understand, easy to access. It's just not only the technical. We mostly think that it is about a technical things, easy to access. For example, using friendly, we call it. But easy to access, it's also including the news writing rules. Maybe we get a bit shorter, and we can use some links. If you need further information, you can click the and etc. And we have some common problems, income problems. The media also, especially local media, have really common challenges about the incomes, because advertising incomes getting low, as you can guess, because people use the social media platforms for advertising and it's free. They don't want to pay for the newspapers or newspapers websites. It's a long story actually. It is a long story.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.